Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what part of the day you're watching this new episode of Data-Driven Formula One. My name is Patrick Henz, and today's topic is the Italian driver Nicola Larini. Why just him? Because earlier in 2025, Alfa Romeo announced the new 4C Collezione GT, Nicola Larini, which later the year in October, the company also um, handed over to the first of the buyers. It's quite an honor, of course, having a car named after yourself. And with this, you are in a small circle. For example, we have the McLaren Ayrton Senna, we have the Fiat Tipo Michael Schumacher, we have other cars named after Niki Lauda, for example. But it's a quite small circle. What you see here on the photo, if you're watching us on YouTube Music or Spotify, is first rendering as Alfa Romeo announced it. And this is the car from the left side, as you see in the red color, the Rosso Bruna. And on the right, you see Nicola Larini himself, a photo taken back from 1993, because Nicola Larini was several years around in Formula One, and we will focus, of course, on that time, but more successful in touring car, especially with Alfa Romeo. And here you already see the relation between Alfa Romeo and Larini. Speaking a little bit about this project, the 4C Collezione, before we, of course, focus on Larini as person and as the driver, as part of the Stellantis Heritage project, and here you have to know Stellantis is the mother company of Alfa Romeo, Fiat, Peugeot, Lancia, etc. So as part of the Heritage project, reloaded by creators, Alfa Romeo partners with Nicola Larini to create 3 unique Alfa Romeo 4C customized by the race driver. The 3 models will have different liveries. In English, it's pine green, plum red, which we already saw, and ochre yellow. Furthermore, the mid-engine cars will feature unique details and Larini signature out and inside the car. I think especially the ochre yellow, Alfa Romeo fans know it's a quite classic color, as you see it on the right on the Alfa Romeo GT Junior, as it also was quite successful in the European Touring Car Championships. So, homage less to Formula One, but to Alfa Romeo's touring car heritage. The 4C is no new car. It was built from 2013 to 2019, while in 2020 Alfa Romeo produced a special Spider version, and it was manufactured in the Maserati factory. It was the first Alfa Romeo sold in the USA after the brand returned here to the market, so quite important for the US business. After the 4C, there came the Giulia, the Stelvio, and the Tonale. We are talking here about a 175-liter mid-engine car, 240 h-power at 6,000 RPM, maximum speed 258 kilometer per hour. You see on the photo, to be honest, of course, it reminds to the bigger 6C. Besides this, quite small, light mid-engine car, so it didn't remind me directly to an Alfa Romeo, maybe more to the Lotus or the smaller Porsche. Nevertheless, of course, it is an Alfa Romeo. I had the pleasure not only to see it, but also listen to it while it drove by. And even if it's just a quite small turbo engine, I can confirm you that the engine really sounds good. So that's why the reason why we talk about Nicola Larini today, because Alfa Romeo announced this project having this 4-3 special edition. One important point, I couldn't really figure it out if they bought back cars, refurbished them, or used parts which they still had in the factory and then produced 3 additional completely new cars. I think the second uh, sounds more likely. So it's not so we are not speaking about a refurbished car, but a complete new 4-3, or better said, 3 new 4-3. Okay, we come back to this later. Now, Nicola Larini, or completely known as Nicola Giuseppe Larini, he was an Italian racing driver who competed in Formula One between 87 and 97. And in touring car racing, Larini won, for example, the Deutsche Tourenwagenmeisterschaft, the German Touring Car Championship in 1993, and 1 year before already the Italian Super Turismo Championship, both with the Alfa Romeo 155. Born March 1964 in Lido de Camaiore in north of the Tuscany. We will see about this little town. And drove for Coloni, Osella, Ligier, Modena, Ferrari, and Sauber. With this, he totals 75 entries in Formula One. Camaiore is a hometown, is a city with around 33,000 inhabitants, originally founded by Romans, but you see, of course, this beautiful medieval Renaissance Italian architecture, which you find around a lot in Tuscany. He is in the province of, this city is in the province of Lucca, so a little bit away from the more known Firenze or Florence in Italy. So born in an Italian city, so quite far away from motorsports, and maybe the reason why, as far as I remember, Larini didn't spoke that perfectly well English, and which may have been a little bit a language barrier for him uh, triumphing in Formula One, because obviously we will see this, he had all the talent. Pre-Formula One. Nicola Larini was born on March 1964 in Lido de Camaiore, as we already discussed, and emerged from a strong local karting scene before moving into cars. So the quite typical way advancing in motorsport end of 80s and being in the 90s. He stepped into Formula Italia in 1983 and then into Formula Abbas in 1984, finishing a third overall and simultaneously beginning to race in Italian Formula 3, quite strong at that time. By 85, Larini was a serious contender in Italian F3, and in 86 he won the championship driving a Coloni run Dallara, a success that pushed him towards the international single-seater ladder. A brief spell in Formula 3000 with Coloni in 87 followed, so it did not bring comparable success, and besides this, quickly he intersected with his first steps into Formula One later in 87. Because he debuted at the Italian Grand Prix, especially for this Coloni team, but this was already quite in the second half of the 87 championship, when Coloni had the team and the car ready. In 88, he switched to another Italian team, Osella, where again he was the team's sole driver. Larini finished 3 races. Best result had been a 9th place at the Monaco Grand Prix. As we often discussed, Monaco, a place where the driver is more important than the car, at least if you compare it to other racetracks, and another sign of for Larini's talent. Also here, it was the first time he came into contact with Alfa Romeo, because even if Osella used officially an Osella engine, it was the old Alfa Romeo engine, as Alfa Romeo left Formula One, they not wanted to be attributed uh, to Osella, especially as Osella was lacking of favorable results. So they spoke with the team that yes, they can use the engine, but please not call them Alfa Romeo. So on the paper, it's an Osella engine. He stayed also the next year at Osella, and for first time he received a second driver as a colleague, Piercarlo Cinzani. Larini only finished one race at the 12th position, the San Marino Grand Prix, while Cinzani did not finish any race. Here you have to see 2 points. We had that time pre-qualification where you had to qualify for the qualification, and there we had also still a higher number than today. So not all the cars qualified to start on Sunday. So it was, especially for the smaller teams, quite difficult to qualify for the race. And also still at that time, end of 80s, reliability of the cars, not only this from the small teams, also from the bigger teams, was not on the same level as we know from now, mid of the 2020s. But you see, and we will see this also later, typically Larini was the stronger of the two drivers. After this, he had the chance to start for Ligier, and he had been teamed with French driver Philippe Alliot. As best results, Larini achieved 2 7th places in Spain and Japan, while Alliot could achieve 2 9th places in San Marino and France. Also here, Larini, the stronger of the two drivers, even though I assume in general the year was quite disappointing for him. Ligier was a big, well, not a big name anymore, but at least a bigger name, so a mid-established team in Formula One. But unfortunately, 1990 was not good for Ligier. The car was not really competitive. So I assume Larini had hopes to establish him as a driver in the midfield, maybe in one of the next years with a chance having a second seat at one of the big teams like Ferrari, McLaren, Williams, or Benetton. But Ligier lacked competitiveness, and so this didn't work out. And as consequence, Larini changed back to an Italian team, the complete new Modena team, which had been practically the rests of a potential Mexican team called Glass F1. Its Glass F1 is a quite mysterious up to crime story. If you're interested in it, and it's really very, very interesting from my point of view, please check out our episode about Glass F1, which at the end turned into the Modena team using the Lambo 291 F1. It was powered by the new Lamborghini engine. Lamborghini at that time had been owned by Chrysler. Chrysler wanted to use the Italian name to establish itself in Formula One, and that's so also they had quite high hopes on the Lamborghini 12-cylinder engine. And so they tested it first 91 with Modena. Later, they also would deliver the engine to other smaller teams. Unfortunately, never became that successful. That's why Lamborghini stayed not that long in Formula One. But you had to have high hopes for this new engine. So I think it was a smart move for Larini, also considering that maybe he didn't have that much other options to go to Modena, because it could have become something big due to the different circumstances, but unfortunately it didn't. Maybe because the budget was never big enough to make the engine really competitive. Also, again, you had all the problem of a small team. Nevertheless, if you have a look on the car, I mean, it looks very aesthetic. This dark violet color, yellow sponsorship. Also, its shape quite untypically for other cars at that time. Again, very beautiful from my point of view, but unfortunately not very successful. So, 91, he joined the new Modena team located, you may imagine, in Modena near the Scuderia, driving together with Belgian driver Eric van der Poel. The new Lamborghini, Larini achieved the season's best result already in the very first race of the season in the US, a seventh place, while Van der Poel's best result had been later the year, a ninth place. So we see at least the same pattern, he being the stronger driver, even though in this case we have a very small team, Italian team, so he had an advantage, I think, speaking language, and maybe as the budget of the team was not that big, if there had been an update, it would have been first in Larini's car. We may uh, consider that, but nevertheless, we see the same pattern, Larini being the faster of the two drivers. Again, Modena only lasted 1 year, and Larini didn't secured any driver seat for the next year, so he decided to join the Scuderia Ferrari as driver number 3. And here he had a special task, the development of the active suspension system. Besides this, he won in parallel the Italian Touring Car Championship with an Alfa Romeo 155. At that time, of course, Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, same company. And for the last two races, Ferrari exchanged Ivan Capelli for Nicola Larini. This for two reasons. To be honest, Capelli's results have been quite disappointing. He never had been near to the level of Jean Alesi, who had been the number 1 driver at that time. And also, Ferrari wanted to test the new active suspension system under race conditions, so making sense to have Nicola Larini driving a new car, the Ferrari F9280, an evolution of the car Jean Alesi was driving, and to test the new system under race conditions. He achieved a 12th place in Japan and 11th in Australia. Quite okay. The Ferrari was not really competitive that year anyway. And besides this, you have to know, yes, he had the new system, but on the other hand, the car was 30 kilo more heavy than Alesi's, so not really competitive even against the Ferrari F92A driven by Jean Alesi. With this, Nicola Larini temporarily had been out of Formula One. In '93, he focused his time driving in the German Touring Car Championship, the Deutsche Tourenwagen-Meisterschaft, driving the new all-wheel drive Alfa Romeo 155 TI, a car specially developed for this championship. Also, all-star team. Besides him, drove Alessandro Nannini, about whom we also had a special episode. Nannini joined touring car racing after his helicopter accident. Besides this, another former Formula One driver, German Christian Danner, and number 4 had been Francia as a race engineer. So he drove, but his focus was further developing the car. It was really a wild time. We had this championship, first called German Touring Car Championship. After this International Touring Car Championship in the last 2 years. So it was only around 4 years. The problem had been the costs went really out of control because these cars had been full of high tech, even tech which was already banned from Formula One. So even if they look like the car which you can drive on the street, buy in the shops, dealerships, they hadn't been anything similar to a street car, full of high tech, and that's why also because we had a lot of expensive drivers in the series, costs exploded. They tried to internationalize. That's why the change of name from German to International Touring Championship. But at the end, after 4 years, it was closed. Nevertheless, it was again a great time, great to see, great to hear these cars. And Larini won in the first year of the championship with the car you see today in the Alfa Romeo Historic Museum. I said it before various times. If you're in the Milan area, highly recommend to visit this place, one of the most beautiful car museums on the planet. Okay, after 93, Larini had the opportunity to drive again in Formula One because he was still the number 3 driver, also for testing purpose. And as Jean Alesi had been injured in the first race, Larini replaced him for the for the next 2 races of the 94 championship. Uh, as you may remember, a very tragical year for Formula One, something which we'll not discuss that much in this episode, but of course on detail in our episode about 1994. Here you see Nicola Larini with the his typical helm design, dark blue with a lighter blue, a lot of white. So this was the helm design he always used in his career. Sitting in the Ferrari 512, I think it was called that year. Very beautiful car, as it was quite in fashion, nose high. And there he was replacing Jean Alesi. That year we had Japan twice in the agenda. The first race had been near Okayama. It's the Aida circuit. As we also have known, for example, from Germany, where we had the Nürburgring race sometimes as the European Grand Prix. Also here they named the first Grand Prix not Japanese Grand Prix, but Pacific Grand Prix. Larini qualified on the 7th position, while Berger, the other Ferrari driver, started from the 5th place. I think quite good if you don't have that much experience as the normal driver, so good result. The race frame was quite short. Directly after the start, Mika Häkkinen tried to attack Ayrton Senna. The second spun and collided with Larini, meaning Senna and Larini both out. With this, we're coming to San Marino. Again, I don't have to tell you, maybe one of the darkest weekends of Formula One. We had the death of Roland Ratzenberger in qualification, and then the tragic accident of Ayrton Senna in the race itself. Something which we will discuss clearly in our episode about 94. So today we see a little bit more how Larini did. He qualified on 6th position while Berger started from the 3rd place. Again, a little bit slower than Berger. I think good for a test driver. I mean, the first task is, if you're a test driver, keeping the car safe, don't be involved in accidents, and etc. And the race itself, it was at the end Larini's best result, which he should achieve in Formula One, 2nd place behind Michael Schumacher. Here a quote from Larini from a later interview. The fact remains that I finished 2nd with Ferrari at Imola, but in a dark context that I've almost erased from my mind because in such a situation you can't give importance to a result that, unfortunately for me, remained unique. After this, Larini focused again on the touring car championship and Alfa Romeo. And but then his last comeback had been in 1997 at Sauber, um, driving the Sauber Petronas, something similar as mentioned before. The Petronas engine was a Ferrari engine, but Petronas, as a main sponsor, had the opportunity to rename the engine, so the name was Petronas, even though it was a Ferrari engine. And this is the first time that Nicola Larini became the number 2 driver. A different scenario for him. And also very interesting and very unique. In 97, we had the International Touring Car Championship on one weekend, and the other weekend there had been Formula One, then again Touring Car, Formula One. So the agenda had been that way that there practically never had been races in parallel. And due to this, Larini wanted and had to, due to contract, uh, drive for Alfa Romeo in the touring cars and also for Sauber in Formula One. Of course, quite ambitious, and at the end did not really work out. Due to lacking of positive results and also with disagreements with Peter Sauber, Larini complained that the atmosphere and the team wasn't that good. And maybe also because, as we discussed before, maybe there had been a slight language problem on Larini's side. And also, it was the first time he was the number 2 driver. So he didn't had, like the years before, the full support of the team, something which he had also at Alfa Romeo, and maybe something which he needed to really show 100% of his abilities. And that's why only after 5 races they decided to split. And Larini was replaced by another Ferrari test driver, Gianni Morbidelli, and the Argentinian driver Norberto Fontana, who drove in the cockpit, which was earlier Larini's, in the various races. So that's really the end of Formula One for Larini. Before we see a little bit what he did after, some quotes. In a certain point in my career, I said to myself, it's better to be a high-level extra than a low-level actor. Let's settle for this and be happy. So here, this was his motto and his experience, as maybe he had been a low-level actor due to missing budget at the smaller teams. Besides this, he had the big task to develop the active suspension system at Ferrari. So here he was really a high-level extra, and at the end he was fine with it. What's going on in my head on the last lap? Everything. Unless I don't have anyone behind me, I don't think so much about the mistakes. You're usually just hoping that nothing will break. So if you don't see the computer directly in the mirrors, of course, you're listening to the car. You try to smell if something is leaking. And so there are a lot of things in your head. I think a quite good description here by Larini. We're coming back again to the 4C, Collezione. Here, Larini describes what he thinks about this car. What emotions do I feel when it comes to the Alfa Romeo 4C? Well, too many to name, but honestly, I would rather speak about sensations because I had the chance to fully get to know, experience, and drive it on a real proving ground like Balocco. I had the opportunity to push it to its limits there, and I understood that despite being a road vehicle, it was made for the racetrack. Myself, I never had the pleasure to drive the 4C, But earlier this year, I had an invitation to the Porsche Experience Center here in Atlanta at the airport. And here I had the opportunity and pleasure to drive the small Porsche mid-engine car. Again, a street car like the 4C, but really you see that the place to be for such a car is a racetrack. It's so much fun to drive it against. I think the cars are quite comparable, the Porsche with the 4C. Very similar concepts, and yes, you feel quite safe. Also because there are different kind of computer settings, but and I was happy to have an instructor all the 45 minutes, I think, all the sides beside me, explaining me where to drive, how to accelerate, etc., etc. Because on the one hand, my priority was, of course, keep the car safe, but on the other hand, you want to become faster and understand where to drive as a race driver. So, great experience. But back to the 4C. Due to its capabilities, you can't understand how secure it is until you push it to the edge. Yeah, also my experience. It's also comfortable enough to be a hatchback, but features unparalleled performance, especially in terms of safety. I've never driven such an easy car to manage at high speeds, also my experience with the Porsche, which is the most important thing when dealing with powerful vehicles. I think that the 4C will forever remain in the hearts of car enthusiasts and especially new owners of the new collection with bears my name. I hope they enjoy the very best sporty driving experience, and I'm sure they will. Oh, the last, of course, my point. Post Formula One, Nicola Larini stayed until 23 with Alfa Romeo, driving for the Works team called Nord Auto at that time in the European Touring Car Championship, and achieved, for example, a second and a third place in the championship. As I mentioned, costs went out of control in the International Touring Car Championship. That's why you went a little bit more to basics. So you see this Alfa Romeo 156 driven by Nicola Larini. It's much nearer a street car than the Alfa Romeo 155 TE. Of course, it's still very different than a street car, but much lower tech in comparison to the earlier 155. Besides, after Alfa Romeo, he still drove for Chevrolet before he really retired as a professional race driver. The end, as we started with the Alfa Romeo 4C Collezioni GT, Nicola Larini. As mentioned in the beginning, this had been renderings you saw, but later in 25 in October, the company handed over the first of the three new cars, the one in the ochre yellow, to his new owner. They did it at the Alfa Romeo Historical Museum in Arese, Milan. And here, of course, Nicola Larini was there. I would assume same is valid with the handover for the other two cars. Before this, Larini had been at the local racetrack, having a lap with the Collezione GT Nicola Larini for a demonstration so that the new owner knows what he is getting before he handed over the keys to the lucky new owner. That's practically all for today. At the end, to enjoy a little bit the photo footage from this event. So this is now the real car. You see it in the traditional ochre yellow, big Alfa Romeo logo. On the left, on the photo on the right, Nicola Larini's signature, and he himself still with the same helm design on the demonstration lap. And here you see him standing before the Alfa Romeo Historic Museum, which was before that Alfa Romeo factory. Last photo from the inside. if I'm correct, the Alfa Romeo did not change the technical specifications, so it's still the same as the normal 4C, which again was great, was and still is a great car. But of course, the inside looks very beautiful with the design, same colors inside mirrored than outside. As it's typical for Alfa Romeo, you see the logo on the seats, and at this special edition, you will also see Nicola Larini's signature. Again, at the end, let's recap maybe why Larini didn't make it completely to the top. I already mentioned, as far as I remember, his English was quite basic. So I remember his interviews always had been with a translator who at the side. And I think this was a problem for him joining a bigger team, which normally had been located in the UK. Even Benetton, as it was having the Italian name, the Italian owner, but was located in the UK. So I think this was a big problem, and maybe he stayed a little bit too long at the small Italian teams. With this, there was the image that he was like an Italian driver for small Italian teams, and maybe he didn't had the opportunity to go to a more international team after the first or second year. And I think staying a little bit too long with the small Italian teams maybe harmed his opportunities to join really one of the teams, the mid teams besides Ligier, or at the end one of the top teams as a second driver. Nevertheless, he became famous in touring car racing with the spectacular 155 and also with the 156. So he really connects most with Alfa Romeo. So it makes much sense having this 4-3 bearing his name. If you want to connect with him on social media, he is on Facebook. Just look for Nicola Larini, and also at Instagram. But he is not really a digital native, meaning there are not many posts, just a few a year. Nevertheless, you can connect and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. By the way, also a data-driven F1, you can find us on Instagram. But that's really all, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If yes, give it a like and follow us for the next episodes. With this video version, we are at YouTube, Spotify, and YouTube Music. The audio-only version you find on all podcast catchers. With this, thanks and see you next time. Bye-bye.